Okay, so the usual question for Nico Balletta every time that he come in Puglia about video games and culture. What is the meaning of life?
I have no idea.
Okay,
Well,
that's
for
a good
me,
point.
it's like spending a lot of time on the couch, enjoying my new TV and covering myself with cats and order food. That's pretty much it.
Yes, it's a very high
That's a good
cultural
life.
point.
That's a good life.
Okay, today we have Piero Molino that for sure is one of the most important person about AI, a person and entrepreneur and pride son of Trigiano. He's a very successful entrepreneur in the Silicon Valley. And we have also Nico Balletta that represents one of the biggest events in the world about the gaming industry and game development. And so it's very interesting for me to know what do you think about what's happening about AI and game development in the world right now. In general, what do you think that what will happen in the next future and what happened before? So we have a big arc of story.
Present and future.
Yes, let's try to say something about this.
So first of all, some disclaimer. It's just like I'm not an AI researcher. I'm not a developer. I don't actively use AI in my daily work, which would be kind of weird as an event organizer. But obviously, I do have to put myself out there and talk about AI and deal with the whole AI stuff based on work and all the people that I'm in touch with, that I'm working with, that I invite to the conference, that I just generally talk to, most of them from active game development. But also on the AI researcher side of things, and of course startups that try to make a push in the field of AI. Oh my God, this is a very general question, and it's hard to answer. Generally, I think too many people treat AI the way that we talk about it at the moment as the second coming of God, which is not. I do think it's a very powerful tool that made a huge leap that did not come out of nowhere. People have been using AI for I don't know how many decades. It just made a really, really big leap to a degree that it actually surprised people. But at the end of the day, it's a tool, and it depends on how people use it. That goes for the moral aspects, that goes for the actual, work-related aspects. It's not a shortcut to success, and I think this is a lot of people, especially making money with AI, are trying to sell people this tool as exactly that, and I would argue that a lot of people in their nature are prone to taking shortcuts. Everyone wants to have the success and the results, but no one wants to put in the work, because that's the hard part. And AI sort of promises you to make that step for you. And it's not. You need to know how to use the tool. And if you don't know how to use the tool, then it's probably going to have mixed results at best. A lot of people are scared of it. A lot of people overhype it. I think it can be a very dangerous tool in the wrong hands. I think it needs to be regulated. But I also think that whether you want to include AI in your daily work processes or not, that is a choice to a degree that you can make yourself. But I do think it's in everyone's responsibility to at least get acquainted with the technology, because otherwise, I don't know, it's like false promises or overhyping or fear-mongering. That's, like I said, it's a very powerful tool that can be used for a lot of good. My biggest fear at the moment is, like I said, that that people, as so often with new technology, they try to make a quick buck and milk people with false promises. And this is going to lead to a situation where a generally very interesting and promising technology will get a worse reputation than it actually deserves. That's, yeah, there's so much more. It's the thing, this is like there's so many, it's not a black and white thing as it is so often. There's so many gray areas, and I think you have, depending on what it is that you want to use AI for, and not only within the games industry bubble, but in general. I think this is like, there's so many detailed and individual discussions that have to be had, but people need to also be willing to engage in these discussions, you know, to find some middle ground. You mentioned crypto before. So here's a funny thing. Every year we have this period, our call for speakers, where people can submit talk proposals. In 21, 22, no surprise, everyone was suddenly an expert in crypto. And the approach was the same. People trying to make money off of crypto, they try to sell you crypto and blockchain as the future of gaming. And this is how games will be made in the future. Like, how many crypto games do we actually have? Like, how many can you think of that actually are successful? I think the last one that I heard was a Ubisoft game with 2 active players. So, 23 suddenly, like the AI hype started. And it felt like 50% of all the submissions were, like, crypto was dead, surprise. You know, this is like, I was happy about every crypto-related submission because I could simply decline them. That made my life a lot easier. AI, not so simple. Suddenly everyone's an expert in AI. So now it's more about filtering out who actually do I want to listen to talking about AI. I don't want an audio director telling me about how to use AI in PR and marketing, just as I don't want a PR and marketing guy to tell me about how to use AI in audio or environmental design. Yeah, like I said, I could go on and on, but this is like your turn. Sorry.
Yes, I believe that one of the most important point about AI is not AI itself, but the environment, the historical background in which it is used and in which it is born. The problem is not the AI. In this we can do a sort of game, a chronic game. In another society, AI would be the utopian part. In the capitalism, my view, my personal view, we are in a systemic street in which is more dystopian than utopian for the system in which we live, economic and social. But on this front, please, Piero, enlighten us, where is the hope?
So I think there's a few aspects there, in my opinion. I agree with what you're saying regarding the economic incentives behind it, right? I think all the problems with AI stems from 2 aspects. One is that the current breed of generative AI models require a huge amounts of data to be trained on, and people trained on everybody else's data without asking them. That's the main problem, right? Again, maybe in a different society that would be completely fine. In this society, that is not fine, because training on someone's data could mean also making it harder for them to do their job, right? Because now there's something that can do your job.
At the center, the job is always the political question.
Exactly. The problem is, where does the money go, right? That is the main problem.
The resources to live in general, yes.
That said, though, I think there's what specifically for games, what AI means in games is something that is in constant change, and at the beginning of gaming, not even the beginning, just even immediately after that, like search algorithms like A*, for instance, that's AI for games, right? Or so it's very, very different from the machine learning and the kind of technologies that we use today for doing other things, right? In recent years, now people are trying to bring back generative AI within games, but they're doing it in 2 main ways. One is for development, making it easier and cheaper and faster to do development. And the other one is within the games themselves to ideally do something that is new and different in the gameplay itself. Personally, I like what I do and what I do with my company is in the second camp, so trying to use this technology within the games to make new genres, new gameplay experiences. The vast majority of the industry, though, is instead of spending around the hours creating these, 3D assets of whatever, of like an historical column, like in your pictures in my game, I ask it to the AI and it does it for me instead, right? That may not even be bad in itself, but if that means that someone loses their job because they don't do it, then can start to be bad. And also if that means that it was trained on images or 3D models of columns that someone else did without asking them, that's also bad, obviously, right? So in this sense, the kind of things that I'm personally trying to do is more, how can we use AI within the games to make something that was not possible before? Maybe a concrete example imagine Pokemon. I think it's a good example, right? There's like someone who created 100 creatures in the first Pokemon, and you're playing with those 100 creatures. There's no way for the user to create their own Pokemon. But if we wanted to, like, let the user create their own Pokemon, then we have, millions of players that would need to have their own Pokemon on their device. We wouldn't be able to do it. We wouldn't have like millions and millions of artists to do it on the fly immediately for them while they're playing. And so the only mechanism for be able to do that is something that looks like AI. People have been doing that with procedural generation before. People have been doing it by having editor systems when you have components and then you put these components together to create creatures or something like that. But none of that gives the level of control and detail that current generative AI does. And so the way I'm approaching it personally is in those kind of scenarios, the way we do it is we work with artists, we pay them to create some art for us, and we train models to generate art according to their style, and we license their style so that as long as they want to license it to us, we have a contract, they get paid from that licensing. The moment that they don't want to, the licensing, it's a regular contract that someone can decide to sign or not, right? And they participate in the earnings of the games that we make. I think that's the most fair way to do it, honestly.
So you are trying to stay ethical in an unethical system.
Yeah, so you could do it the other way around. You could say, okay, let me just go on this artist website, scrape their images that they put there, train a model, and generate images according to that artist style. We could do that. Technically, we could do that. I just think that that's not the right way to do it, and the artist will penalize you, like they will not want to work with you, and the players will penalize you because they will not want to buy your game. And so I think it's, on one hand, an ethical choice to do it the way we're doing it. The other way to think about it is that I think it's the only possible choice, to be honest.
Two things. So we in the games, with the choices that you do in your company and in the games and the system of the games that you will create and you are creating right now, you do politics. It's a political choice how to develop some things, but it is not very clear. Usually, there's this not real division between private and public things, that it seems that only what is done from government is public, and what makes a company is something private that it's only for me. But there's a lot of responsibility in each company that decide to make something in a way or in another way. So politics are at the center, at the core of your ethical vision.
Yeah, so we say values are even before that, right? Values comes first, and then the politics is like the reflection of those values, which are actually the things that actually happen, right, as a consequence of that.
Yes, with the old concept that we have from from Greco-Roman philosophy of ethics.
Yeah, I would say that in our case, at the very least, values come first. It's like, because we believe that that's the world that we want to live in. We don't want to live in a world where everybody can steal everybody's art and everybody else's art and make games out of it. And so I don't want to live in that world. I don't think it's a nice world. I don't think it's a world that anybody would want. And so I try to do it in a way that is like not bringing that to life, right?
Yes, I you know how much I like your world view and the view of this development. What I fear is that in a minority is a niche of the industry.
Maybe, but I think players will decide that, right? If players I think players are already voting with their money against AI slop games, and obviously it will be actually hard for us to sell our game to a certain extent, because we will have to explain why it's not slop and why whatever. But if we manage to do that, I don't think we'll be penalized by that, by players because of that. And as a consequence, I think it will be potentially the only viable way to make games with generative AI today, right?
Yes, and this is another more game design technical question. Do you believe that with your company and with your system that you are trying to solve the big chimera of game design about the perfect story machines?
No, I wouldn't go as far, to be honest. No,
are you trying to build Westworld?
So the game that we're building is not like that. It's like a much smaller experience, etc. But from a technological perspective, that may not be too far. Like, a virtual version of that, not with physical robots or whatever, right? But even in that case, during development of our first game, what we have seen is that when you there's a spectrum between the more game designed and strict rules based mechanics and the completely free mechanics of just using an AI model, an LLM, for interacting with the players. What we've already seen is that fun games live kind of inside of this spectrum, somewhere inside the spectrum, and not at the extremes. And so I think that there's much more. We're basically working on a mechanism to bring the auto reality in the AI-based mechanism of generating stories, right? So.
And you, Nico, during the events, apart from the talks that you are choosing for devcom, now Gamescom developers, what do you feel about the fear of developers about AI? What is your view, your privileged view of this fear that is there between and this hate of players about this new form of use of AI? Because as we already told, AI in video games is from the beginning of the video games that is there, but this new form of AI, generative.
Yeah, maybe talking about generative AI versus whatever other technique.
Yeah.
Maybe there could be a nice distinction to frame the conversation.
Which I think is actually really important. And one of my go-to examples for that is I've been to GDC in 2019 and I watched a session of, I don't remember the name, but he was working for Firaxis, and it was a talk on, I don't remember, I think it was the second XCOM 2. And they had these procedurally generated mission levels, right? And each of them consisting of several blocks that were kind of like put together procedurally before every mission. And the talk was basically about the team trying to figure out how big each of these modules actually had to be. Whenever you whenever you played the game for a couple of hours, that it did not feel too repetitive, like after too short of a time, right? So even though they used some sort of AI to procedurally generate their levels, there still had to be a lot of work put into these individual modules to actually make them work. You mentioned gameplay mechanics. I don't think that AI will do that job for you. And at the end of the day, it's just like, no matter how sophisticated a game looks today, I mean, this is like, compare anything from, I don't know, like Commodore 64 to PS5 eras, you know? It's just like the core principles of gameplay are to a degree the same. Yeah, you have some, it comes down to the same recipes, you know, but what you can do technologically to bring it to life, that's a different story. And here's the thing when it comes to like the fear of developers. AI will not do the job for you if you do not have an understanding of what makes a great game. It's not gonna do that job for you. This is like you can do it to help you create art. Yes, you can get inspired by it. Here's a fine line between getting inspired by something and stealing. That's a big, this is one of the fine lines, right? This is like if you ask a concept artist, like, so this whole art, if you want to call it, did you come up with that all by yourself? Have you never seen any other pictures? Have you never listened to any sort of music? Have you not been inspired by anything? Because that would also be ridiculous, but like take an AI to create something for you and then put your name on it. That's a different story. And I think, especially over the next couple of years, we need more people like you and the folks that you're working with to self-regulate, to keep it on a, to keep it ethical. Because regulations will come at some point, but up to this point, people who can make a quick buck with it, they will try to milk the shit out of you. And they will give it a bad reputation. Again, I don't think that AI, if you don't know how to use it, will make your life any easier. But I also do think that, especially in companies that are primarily driven by people who just see the money, they will make certain decisions that will backfire. This is one of the big risks that I see. You have the whole industry in itself, like due to a lot of stupid decisions, like this upscaling, this never-ending upscaling during COVID, thinking that this is the new status quo and people will never leave their homes again. Of course, why would they, right? Why enjoy sunlight? I mean, I get it. So we started the culling and I don't know, downscaling studios and firing people left and right. And it's been going on for 3-4 years. It's not the first time this happened to the industry, just as a side note, right? But this whole AI thing now just adds to what I like to call the culling, you know? Plus you have so many more game developers per se than you ever had before, you know? You have an already oversaturated market. Now all these things come together. Personally, what I fear is that also thanks to AI and I don't know, that this is like the wrong idea that people get of what AI will actually do for you in a positive way. It will actually make people leave the industry for good. People that have gathered, like, I don't know, sometimes decades of practical knowledge that you don't just learn at any academy in like 2 or 3 years. Stuff that you only learn if you do the job, if you fail, if you pick yourself up and you continue, if you don't get washed out, you know? Once these people are gone, this practical knowledge disappears to a large degree. And on the other hand, you have people who simply, where should they have this knowledge from? But then you also have this whole AI bubble, you know, where they try to make you believe that this is, like I said, the holy grail of game development. You don't need anything else. No, you're wrong. If you don't know the basics, if you don't know how to use the tool, then it won't be any good. Like, just try ChatGPT and get it to give you like the same response on the same question 3 times in a row. It won't happen. Like I've tried it just for shits and giggles, like asking it about devcom. And it gave me like 3 completely different sets of numbers 3 times in a row. So how am I supposed to trust?
Starting, very good question.
How am I supposed to trust something like that? I've talked to people at Santa Monica Studios, you know, the guys that made God of War. They basically said, yeah, it's just like we tried things in our development and pipeline processes, but Like if I need to be sure that this tool gives me 100% of the outcome that I want to. If it's only 99%, then what I have to do is go through all of the 100 processes again to double check I'm not saving any time, you know? So, and that's the thing, if you don't know how to use it, it won't help you. But I think we're creating this sort of idea, and this is why I think people, that's why I said people need to get acquainted with what the tool does, what it can do, where its strength lies, where the weaknesses are. And not just get scared and defensive about it. You know, whether you want to use it and in which way you want to use it, this is up to you. You know, I think it can open a lot of doors for people who lack the resources. I like to compare it to, I don't know, like the different stadiums that the music industry went through. You know, it's just like from being very selective about the bands you sign as a label, paying for all of their production, up to the point where we suddenly had MySpace and people could start recording their own stuff in a good quality if you knew what you were doing in your living room and create killer albums. But suddenly it was more about like, how do I promote myself? Like suddenly the market is so oversaturated. How do I stand out? Can I still make money? There's certain milestones in this journey, and I think we're at a similar at a similar stepping stone there. You know, people can with little create big things, and AI is adding to it. And I think especially for people who do not have the background of, like, I don't know, coding or being great artists or whatnot, but they have visions and they have good ideas, and they don't want to turn everything into its own business or startup with like a huge financial risk. This can be great, you know. It's just like to even if it's just a hobby. It all comes down to regulations, and I think it comes down to educating people in how to use the tools that we have, ideally in an ethical way. You will never avoid, mostly the ones that already do have enough money, to not steal from others. But this will go on until there's some official regulation. That's the thing. And I guess the official regulations will be tough at some point. They will be very late because we're always late with these kinds of things. But yeah, in the meantime, I just hope that we don't lose too much talent, that with knowledge that we will not get back and that AI will not compensate for.
Absolutely. Yes. My view, my opinion is that in the flow of history and in the history of technology, often we have something, we reach something and apply this without enough reflections before. It's the mechanism of capitalism. You have to apply immediately something that can be an edge for you. But when it's so big, the transformation, we have more and more risk. And I read often the markets from a lot of years. We talked about this with the game design tools. And it appears to me that we are in a very big bubble, financial bubble of all assets. Even the gold today, that is a materic, real asset, is now correlated to virtual in some way. And my question is, what is your feeling about this? Are we in a big bubble also in the AI sector right now, from what you have seen also in the Silicon Valley and San Francisco?
Yeah, I would say my observation about that is that if you ask people there, they will tell you that it's not. And basically the main case that they bring forward is the example of in the 90s of the .com bubble, really, right? So what they are saying is, at the time, Cisco, which was like one of the main darlings of the .com bubble, was trading at 400 times their annual recurring revenue, while today the companies, at least the established companies, the public companies that are involved in that market, they're trading at 40 times more, which is more or less 20 to 30 is the usual, it's a, let's say, quote unquote, acceptable delta of valuation, right? The reality, though, is that it seems that in many circumstances, something like what Nico was saying is actually happening, meaning that the quality of the tools that we have today is not up to the point where you can leave them do things on their own. And as a consequence, you have to spend a lot of time to actually make them do what you want, potentially even more time than you would do otherwise.
The paradox, yes.
And there's like several studies. There's a famous studies from MIT that was showing that 95% of the pilots of adoption of AI in enterprise specifically were basically failures. So there seems to be like two competing narratives. One very strong that we are in a bubble because there's no we're subsidizing all the costs and there's still no value coming out of it, or almost no value coming out of it. And the other narrative, which is if you look at just the financials, it doesn't seem we are extremely overvaluing the companies. That said, the main company that is at the center of this is NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is like right now a $4 trillion company, while it was like substantially smaller 2 years ago, right? It was 10x smaller 2 years ago. No, more than 10x, I think 100x, so more. So, it's hard for me to say we are in a bubble or not. I think you can only see that something is a bubble after fact. While you are in the bubble, there's no bubble. If someone keeps investing on something, it's a matter of belief, right? If everybody believes we're in a bubble, well, then we will be in a bubble because it will pop. Yes. If enough people believe that it's not in a bubble, then it may not pop.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. But in the last 5-10 years, if you see one of the major index from Nasdaq, for example, you can see from 2008 until now, the movements are more and more powerful. When we had COVID, in just 2-3 weeks, we lost about 40% of the market value, and these parabolic movements are more and more extreme.
I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is, automated trading, which itself is
with a lot of AI
as a consequence. And so that gives a very false sense of security in making certain moves, because it assigns a certain probability and probably overshoots the probability. And so, well, if you knew exactly that tomorrow something will happen, obviously, you will bet all your money on that something, right? And so if you have a 10% probability that will happen, probably you will put 10% of your money. And so as a consequence, if you increase the perception of the probability of an event, the consequence is that the swings can become substantially harder.
And there's also another very important point of this game: manipulation.
Right.
The big manipulation of buybacks. Buybacks effectively are money printing, because when the cost of money is low, it's better for you to buy back your company to have a better price next time, and to sell to the base before the bubble. This is a mechanism of the gameplay, and you are doing something also with AI, this kind of reasoning. It's very interesting about the real game that we are playing also in this field.
There's a little thing that I wanted to add, because I recently, I don't know where it was, but I actually took a screenshot of a tweet of a guy called Robert Reich. I don't know him, maybe you know, I don't know. It basically said, and I thought it was a really interesting statement, and I talked to a friend about that, who's been one of the main curators of GDC's AI Summit for I don't know how many years. And he said, yeah, that sounds about reasonable. And it says, AI companies are spending billions on deals with each other, which boost their value. This has helped 20 billionaires tied to AI add 450 billion to their fortunes in 2025. Meanwhile, an MIT study found that 95% of companies using AI haven't seen returns on investment.
That's the study that was talking about.
This
Yeah.
is, you know, so
point,
yeah,
yes.
this is like you basically you kind of inflate each other's values, which gives even more people the impression that, oh, this is like, oh, we need to do this, otherwise we're gonna fall behind.
Yes, but we are reaching a point about the idea of value in our society that is very critical right now. I think that AI, you know, in a dystopian world, the most critical part of AI is that we become, most of us become useless completely. And if in one side we have Piero, on the other side, unfortunately, we have Elon Musk and other creatures like him. That is not exactly the line of the old Greco-Roman ethics. Depends. Also there we can move in some ideas of a dystopic Nazi world.
One thought experiment that I had a couple of times. I mean, I'm currently like for the sci-fi nerds, like I'm so in love with the Expanse. Like whoever read it or seen, love it, or be it Star Trek or whatever. I mean, AI, you know, as your companion doing shit for you, making every like space travel super easy. Like no matter what you watch or read, I can't think of an AI unless it is like a very dystopian version, where AI has been more than like a very, very, very helpful tool to actually help you navigate through space. You know, like even the most sophisticated interfaces or whatever, they never take the actual decisions from you. So I don't see that happening in the near future. I mean, I have a very okay. This is more of a joke, but like I personally think that obviously as AI feeds on what we feed it, you know, through the internet. My theory, my personal theory is that at some point we will actually have Skynet and we will have Skynet built Terminators,
Okay.
but only because it got the idea from us through the movies. That's my personal theory.
Yes.
Plus, I can think of worse than being like killed by Arnold Schwarzenegger, but that's a different story. I had a I had a question for you actually. Like, how is for your studio and the stuff that you're doing? How is the situation for you, and actually in terms of like making players actually understand that you do indeed use AI in an ethical way as a tool to create something new? Like from what you said, it sounded like, yeah, this is your typical R&D kind of stuff. You know, it's just like you're actually trying something new without like stealing from people or ripping others off. Like, but on the other side, you have like the big ones like Activision, like flooding their games, $80 games with AI slop, especially the companies that you think wouldn't need to because they have enough money.
Mm-hmm.
Like how do you deal with that situation? Like especially in terms of communication towards the player base.
Yeah. The reality is that we haven't released the game yet, the first game yet, and so as a consequence, we haven't faced directly that problem yet.
Like any sort of like announcements or any sort
Yeah. So there's like we put out a blog post I think a few months ago, specifically describing the way we are working with artists. And part of the reason why we put out that blog post is we were trying to hire an art director, and we had a really hard time because the moment that someone would hear that we are doing something with AI, they would just pull from interacting with us to begin with, right? And so, well, there was both, you know, we truly believe in what we wrote in the blog post, and that's actually what we're doing. Plus, there was a very practical aspect of funding someone. Yeah. I remember I had a call with someone who didn't do his due diligence on us, and on the call, the moment that we said something like, Oh, and we're building games that use AI during, like live, during the game existence, during the gameplay, to change the dynamics of how it reacts to people, right, to the player. And basically the guy said, well, I believe you, I hope you should reconsider, and he closed the call, right? So that's how hard the situation was, right? And putting out that article actually led to us actually finding another director now. And that's, I think that's great. And, you know, it's obviously it's like a very beginning of I think it's going to be like a lot of work to explain what we are actually doing and why it's ethical, why, what is that, you know, what is our intent, etc. And I don't know exactly how we are going to do it for the larger public the moment that we release the game for like all customers. One way we're thinking about is actually, you know, to talk about it before at a very technical level, explaining things in detail, but then to players, it's just a game. The fact that it's using AI for doing something, or the fact that it's using any other technology, it shouldn't really matter. In the end, it's what matters is this game is fun or not, right? So we're trying to make a fun game to begin with, and I think if people start to make fun games with AI in an ethical way, then the whole problem cancels itself eventually. It's a process though. It's gonna take a while, and there's gonna be like, we're gonna have to put out a good game first, and you know, whenever someone searches for us, they will read, oh, they're the guys who are doing it ethically because of this. You know, I'm looking forward to better options than that, but yeah.
I mean, the way that you're describing it, I think this is something that I'd be interested in, because to me it sounds like this is more like the next logical step from procedural generation.
Yeah.
You know, so it's like you're still like feeding. Is it a closed-off system then?
It's a combination of both, I would say.
Okay.
There's components, well, not components. Like from an artistic point of view, there's, you know, specific things that the artists that we're working with are doing that we use for training our models. Like I would say the difference between a procedural generation and this is that in the procedural generation, they create the components and then the procedure combines them. Here they create, instead of components, the fully completed thing, and then the algorithm learns how to do the fully completed thing. Yeah. It's more similar to procedural generation than it would be to other things, though, right? So maybe there could be another angle to talk about it. It's like PCG 2.0 or something like that. There could be like another angle to think about it. And the same is true also for the gameplay. Like as you were saying before, I also don't believe at all that if you just go to an AI, you will get like a fun, entertaining gameplay coming from it. The way we're approaching it is, and our game designer, the way he's doing it is creating some basic concepts. So the game that we're building is a card game, and so there's basic effects and statuses that cards can apply to other players, and there's quite a lot of them, and then basically, depending on how the player describes the deck of cards that they want, they are assembled, modified, and generated, starting from the examples that are coming handcrafted by Ennio, by our game designer, right? So it is it uses generative AI, but for doing like a kind of advanced new version of procedural generation, really.
Gotcha. I think it sounds interesting. Yeah, it really does.
I can show you something later.
Yeah, please.
Well, something that I did not say before, but please, during all the event, in each talk and roundtable, feel free to interact with us, with the speakers, with me. Now, if you have any questions to our wonderful speakers, please. Right now, it's the time, but it's the time during all the event. No questions? Okay.
Cool.
Okay, guys. Thank you very much for your
do this for
reflections.
Another 10 hours, probably. This is like,
yeah.
I'm glad I didn't start my usual rant. But I think, like I said, this is like just some final words from my side. This is like, I think it's the whole AI thing is here to stay. That's the big difference, And like I said, you have to deal with it in one way or the other. It's up to you to use it in an ethical way. I think the comment that I've read, I don't remember her name, that was on LinkedIn, as so many others. The one comment that really scared me was, well, at this point I usually use ChatGPT for fact checking, and I thought we're fucking doomed. Like, if you shouldn't use it for one thing, it's fact checking. We haven't even remotely touched upon sustainability when it comes to the use of AI. Yes, obviously, for whatever reason, we did not have enough cat videos online on TikTok. Now we need to procedurally or generatively create them with AI, because you can never have enough cat videos. But this is the other thing, like, even outside of the games industry, I think deepfakes were already a problem. Audio synthesis in combination with deepfakes was a problem, considering like the political landscape on a global level. Spreading fake news all over, people having a hard time differentiating what is actually real unless it's so over the top and what is not. Like within what felt like 2 weeks, even this whole AI slob on Instagram, like suddenly, like if you knew a little bit about like the whole usage of AI, you know, it was pretty clear to determine, okay, this is a fake video, this is not real, because it was so over the top. It took them like 2 filters to make it look like a door dash cam video, and suddenly it's so much harder to differentiate between what is real and what is not. And we're talking about like from the perspective of people who work in the industry, who have to work with this kind of stuff in one way or the other. Now imagine like your average person, like friends of mine who send me stuff, and I have to respond with a sad emoji. It's like, yeah, this is AI. I'm sorry, not really funny, because it would be funny if it was real. And this is like, people don't realize that. And I think this is a much bigger risk than, I don't know, like probably whatever we do in the games industry. You know, it's just like, it may be hard to hear that, but there's other areas where the consequences would be so much more significant. You know, just to keep that in the back of our heads. But yeah, I mean, this is like, I'm curious to see where it's going.
The end of the limes, the end of the borders between reality and virtuality, and it's a chaotic period in front of us.
Support your local cat video dealers, you know?
I have a question about what we were talking about earlier.
Please, can you come here so we can record the question? It's better. No, no. Non mi ricordo manco come mi chiamo. Lo so, sì, ma se funzionasse. Sorry, but... Okay. Please.
Is using AI for troubleshooting, for understanding an engine ethical?
I would say so, yes.
Even for maybe coding correction?
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is like, I think, personally, I do think this is one of the absolutely ethical like applications. This is, it's helping. It's basically a tool for it's basically a tool for QA. If not, use it for QA to double check what you've done, and you know, just like go over certain processes and automate stuff. Yeah, this is like you're basically just double checking what you've already done. You're not stealing anything and not giving credit to anyone, you know. This is what people are pissed about, that if you steal their voice and not pay them, and thereby basically taking away their livelihoods. It's like just going through like ArtStation and collect everything that you see there and turn it into your own stuff. If you don't do that, there is no ethical aspect. But if you've written code or I don't know, like want to do some QA for, I don't know, like check out your levels, yeah, of course, use AI. Why not? This is I think where the power actually like really shines, you know?
Yeah, I'm just afraid of
Yeah, but I don't know. Like I said, this is just my personal opinion. This is why I say like everyone has to at least like get an idea of what AI is. Because also I think like, and please correct me if I'm wrong there, like this is like also, for example, like people put AI, generative procedural generation, machine learning all in one pot, even though it's different things. Like people hear the buzzword AI and like everyone has an opinion, just like me, obviously. But I think the hardest part is to actually make people understand who have no relation with the technology whatsoever, to make them understand what it actually is you're doing. And you're gonna have a hard time probably, because especially when you talk to gamers, all they hear is, oh, it's done with AI. You know, they don't differentiate. And I think this is a huge, this is why I asked him, like, if they already had like any communication sort of with any potential player base. Like just recently, we had 2 cases where Ubisoft launched Pax Romana, and they had one AI concept art they forgot to take out of the game. They replaced everything with their original concept art and artworks in general. It was a shitstorm. You know, at some point they just didn't address it anymore because like people just need something else to jump on, and then it's forgotten, you know, after 2 days. Larian had the same thing now after they announced the trailer for the new Divinity. Yeah, we're using AI in the concept department. Guys, chill out. Like Sven Winke put out a statement, guys, chill out. We still have 73 concept or artists in general, 23 concept artists, and we're still hiring more people. It's not like we're letting people go. But gamers will be gamers. Everyone has an opinion, whether they're right or not. All you can do at the end of the day is, you know, tell people how it is and hope for the best. I think that's all you can do at this point. And it doesn't matter if it's about AI or anything else. Like this, sometimes, you know, this is like, it's just really hard to, yeah, discuss things with people. But I wouldn't worry about that too much, because like at some point this will be normalized. And if you actually have receipts for what you've done, I don't know, like this is probably something you can add more to.
No, honestly, I agree 100%. I do not have much more to add. You know, it's also what you believe it's ethical, and what you think is the right thing to do for you, right? If you think that by doing that, you feel you are infringing on someone else's ideas or IP or whatever else, then don't do it. But if you don't feel that is the case, and I don't think you do, you shouldn't.
My case was like more than it is like a bit of shortcuts, because I feel like I'm undermining other people who are doing troubleshooting by themselves, or
No.
I personally don't agree with that. I mean, it's and then I think if you bring that idea to the extreme, then we should not do anything because, you know, I don't know. We should not invent cars because otherwise, you know, the coach drivers get out of the job, right? So I think there's an extreme version of it which I don't subscribe to. I think being ethical doesn't mean like not avoiding literally doing anything that anybody else could have done, right? I think that there's a spectrum, right, and that I personally that's outside of what I would consider, but
I mean, imagine like any Microsoft Word document, you know, this is like they have like this basic grammar correction whatnot, you know. It's like whenever I write anything in Word, then I mean, it's just like I'm not even thinking about like hiring a proofreader, you know, and that's basically that. You do something and you have tools to actually double check. Cool, do it. You know, this is what I would compare it to. I don't know. Like I said, you're not stealing from anyone. This is like, I think it's not like if you didn't use an AI tool to double check code or whatever, it's probably not like you'd have the funds to suddenly pay someone, I don't know, for X amount of month or bring in another person to double check your stuff. because otherwise you'd probably just not do it or have bad code because your resources just don't grow like that all of a sudden. So I think, like I said, it's a fine line. And yeah, I wouldn't worry about QA, honestly. And I think it's also, that's not the kind of things that people are pissed about. I really don't. I don't know.
All right. Yeah, I think what people are pissed about is law.
Yeah.
And taking away the artistry from games.
Yeah.
That's what people are pissed about.
And not getting credit for it.
And not getting credit.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what people are rightfully pissed about.
Yeah.
So, thank you very much.
Okay, we can close this first session.
Cool.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you, Fabio.
Thanks.